I went to this class. I had this idea. My idea was, hey, I want to help children do art that are in the hospital battling cancer. And I would share just that simple statement with people, and they latched on, and it started to grow.
A switch point moment is a moment in time that fundamentally changes your life because of a connection you made with another human being. My name is Shawn P Neal, and this is the Switch Point Project. And hey, Switch Pointers, welcome back, and thanks so much for joining me this week. We have got a really cool guest, a really inspiring guest. Renée Dieffenderfer is the founder and president at Creations for Cures. And let me tell you, we talk about switch point moments, being that moment that when you meet someone, it just kind of fundamentally changes something about you, about your thought process, your path, whatever. And to meet Renée and to talk to her and learn about the things that she has went through and the circumstances that she has overcome that then propelled her to create Creations for Cures, which uses art to help young people through cancer. It's an amazingly moving story. And I think that you're going to find her to be a very inspiring individual. So I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're going to take a minute to get to know Renée. As always, let's take a few minutes right before we get started to hear a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back after this word. See you on the other side. And welcome, everybody. We're here with Renée Dieffenderfer, and Renée is, this is going to be a great interview. I'm excited to have you on, Renée. Thanks for joining me. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful, Shawn. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We're talking, we want to get to know your story a little bit, and there's this nonprofit that you created called Creations for Cures. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but first, I would love to just kind of talk about who you are and we'll kind of explore how you got into this space. Now, I understand you came originally from the East Coast,
Yep.
And you moved out to the Oregon area. So, let's give us a little bit of background on who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So like you said, I'm originally from Pennsylvania. I grew up between Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, a couple states. And then my first trip out west was after high school. So I graduated high school and went out to Los Angeles. So I had this thing for driving across the country, because then I drove back to Pennsylvania, where fell in love with my husband. We've been married for over 15 years now, and together we moved out to Oregon about 10 years ago. And it's just been a wild ride ever since. We underestimated how much we would love Oregon. So about 4 years ago, we decided to call it our home and bought a house.
Back in 2012, you had a personal brush in your family with cancer. Can you just kind of tell everybody a little bit about what that was and what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So my father was diagnosed with cancer, started in his lungs, and then by the time they found it, it made it to his brain. So in February of 2012, he passed away. I was living in Oregon at the time, so my husband and I flew there. We got to see him one last time, and then he passed away. So we were with family, and it's all full of an experience, and tragic as that is, we were very blessed to be surrounded by family. So, but that was in early 2012, and then I had my second dose of cancer, which was my own, later that year.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What was one of the biggest things that you learned about yourself, both with your father's experience and your own personal experience?
It was a learning moment for me in how I was operating beforehand, and learning how I needed to be just as a community member, as a person, as a woman, as a cancer survivor moving forward. And that was letting people help me and not being afraid of asking for help and receiving kindness. So I made the decision early on. I'm a very open person. I'm a people person. I love building relationships and getting to know people. And so it did feel naturally easy for me to be very open. So when my father was going through it, my friends My friends that were close to me knew what I was going through, and I was welcomed with a huge amount of support. And then I was diagnosed that November. That was a crazy situation. So that following year in November, I was diagnosed, and it was like this element of surprise. I think we were just all in shock. Like, this couldn't really happen to me. I don't have cancer. I'm 28 years old. And then, so because I was such an open person, I made the conscious choice to share my cancer journey, because I know that not everybody does. Some people fight. They choose to keep it private. So I thought, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to share my experience. I'm going to be vulnerable, because for those people that do choose to fight on their own, if they see my story, or if, they hear about what I'm going through, maybe they wouldn't feel alone. But doing that, I had a lot of people asking me, how they wanted to help, or sending me things, or telling me, hey, I'm going to do this. And I was just like, I'm a very prideful person. I grew up like, I got it myself. I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to carry this box myself. I don't need anybody's help. And so that was hard for me to learn. It was hard for me to let go of my pride and let people in to help.
What was that experience like for you to give in and let go and accept the help? What did that feel like for you?
Well, there was a turning point. I wasn't conscious to it. I was just kind of floating around, doing what I had to do, going to this doctor's appointment, going to that doctor's appointment, So I was very operationally driven, and I was not necessarily conscious to, my feelings at that time. I mean, they were coming out. I wasn't walking around like a zombie, but I wasn't terribly conscious to it. And so I was sitting there. I remember it. I was sitting there at work. I used to work for, my background was as a consultant. So I used to consult for audiologists in private practice and medical facilities. And so I was at work. I chose to be there and to do my job a lot through chemo. So I'm sitting there. And at that time, there was a VP of HR, and she sat down with me. She called me into her office. And she said, the company, specifically the founder, the owner of the company, really want to help you. And, we want to support you, and we want to help you, and we'd like to help you financially. And so I was just like blown away. I'm a poor kid from Pennsylvania, and I had just come out of a doctor's appointment where, because I was 28, I didn't have kids, and I needed an aggressive dose of chemo, ABVD, then there was a big risk of infertility. So my oncologist was amazing. I feel very fortunate to have him, because he educated me and on, going to learn more about freezing my eggs so that we could, potentially have a family. So I had all this information before I sat down with this woman at where I worked, and I knew that because I had cancer, I got a discount at the egg freezing doctor. So it was a $3,000 fast pass, I guess benefit, if that's what you want to call it. And so wow. I knew I needed $3,000 to do this. And $3,000 was and still is a lot of money to me. And I was wrestling with that. And so I'm talking to her, and I was like, I'm crying, I'm sobbing in her office. And she's like, I can tell that you don't want to accept this help. I can tell that you want to be the helper. And that you really care about people's experiences. And if I could offer you this way to think about it, think about what it's like to help somebody for you, and how good you feel, and at the end of it, and how fulfilling it is. And so by you rejecting or not letting people in to support you and help you, you're robbing them of that very experience. So that was motivating to me. That was like the door that opened, and I was like, took the $3,000 and ran to the clinic and did my procedures. And so it was a pivotal moment for me. It impacted my way of letting people in.
Yeah. And once you do that, like once you come past that point, then it seems like you can open up to so much more. I know I had some personal experiences where I was kind of surprised at my own ability once I overcame that to really just open up and accept and be transparent. Authenticity is just coming to mind. So the cancer journey, when you talk to somebody out there that is experiencing that right now, like what is the piece of advice that you give to them? Because that journey is real and it's difficult. What do you say to that person?
Well, for the person who's going through it and the caregiver, I have a lot of caregivers that will reach out to me like, hey, Renee, I have a friend who's going through it. What can I buy them? What can I do? And so my biggest piece of advice is to be present and just be a really good listener for the caregiver side. And for the patients themselves, just tell them it's okay to feel how you're feeling. It's okay to want what you want, don't want what you don't want. Everybody's journey is completely different. Everybody's experience is different. That's why empathy is so, so, so important. I think a lot of people sometimes will be surprised if they get like what is maybe defined as a nasty reaction. I went in to help this person who's battling cancer, and they were just like, they didn't want to open the door, let me in. Well, that's okay, and you need to be okay with that because everybody's different. So I'd say the biggest would be demonstrating empathy and knowing that your experience is your experience, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, the caregiver is, that's another component, and I think that plays nicely into to what you do now. Caregiver burnout is a real thing that we don't talk a lot about. And I would love for you to kind of share your thoughts with those out there who are both caregivers and on the receiving side as well to that topic, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, it's, I had over the last couple of years, I became a caregiver in a couple of different ways. So my husband was in a terrible snowboarding accident. He was missing. They had to find him, and they had to bring him off the mountain, and he had 2 broken legs and broken ribs, and so he was completely laid out. So I was his full-time caregiver. I had to move his legs for him. It was traumatic for both of us. And then we joke about it now because we both have like interesting senses of humor. So he had to one-up me, and he had to get his own cancer diagnosis. So then later that year, he was diagnosed with his own cancer. So we're just like, you always have to one-up me because we get kind of competitive. But I found myself in a full-time caregiver position for way longer than I had originally anticipated. And I think that, again, it comes back to letting people help you. My friends were like, Renee, are you okay? Because there were times, we joke about it now, but if you've ever taken care of somebody who can't sit up for themselves or needs help going to the bathroom as an adult, those are very humbling and humiliating and vulnerable experiences, and you get PTSD from it. There were times where I had to scream into my pillow because I was so frustrated. We were both frustrated. We were both just screaming, not at each other, but just in general, just like with the situation. And so I think, again, it just comes to talking about it, having your friends and your family that you can talk to and feel comfortable, talking and being vulnerable with, and then letting people in to help. Because it is a lot. Being a caregiver is emotionally, it's physically exhausting, just managing doctor's appointments. And it's a lot. So I think leaning into your tribe.
Yeah. Doesn't it tie into what you said earlier about, being able to accept the help too, because it's interesting. We think about if I'm in a position where I need someone to help me physically for something I'm going through, that's one thing. But if I'm a caregiver who's giving help, that's something different. And yet still we have to let that happen.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's not easy. Like just last night, a friend of mine called me out because we hosted a painting night for one of our events at Creations for Cures, and it was time to clean up. We had paint supplies everywhere and huge tubs of stuff, and he called me out because he's like, where can I put this table? I was like, oh, leave it there. I'll just get it. He's like, no. Your pride is in the way. Where does the table go? I'm going to wrap this up. So he called me out. So it's not easy. It shows up for everybody.
It's amazing to me that as we talk about something, 3, let's just be real, 3 cancer diagnoses and whatnot, that you still are able to put a smile on your face, and you're able to, to find humor and laughter in life. What's the secret to that? Like, how do you do that?
I think, a non-helpful secret for people would be that I have really good parents. They were not perfect parents. They made mistakes. But they were really good parents, and they taught me love and positivity, and they helped me build confidence as a person, as a young girl. So I know that's not terribly helpful to everybody because you can't just go back in time to your inner child. But what I do today that does help me is I'm present and I'm constantly reflecting on my blessings. What am I grateful for? There's so much to be grateful for. And in those moments, that's where I've learned. Like in those moments where I'm feeling like, why isn't this working? Or I'm frustrated, or, things aren't moving fast enough, or I'm not, in those moments of frustration in general and in times of trauma, just remembering, okay, I'm here. I'm breathing. It's like the little things that you can just remember. And that's what I do, is I just remember those little tiny things, and they get me out of that space, because I'm not, a positive, happy, go lucky, cheerful person all the time. I mean, I am most of the time, but it's because I take those moments to really think about, okay, what's happening? I'm conscious to it. And
yeah. And I think that the unrealistic expectation is that if we, live life right, every moment will be happy. And it's not about that. I don't think. I heard it best stated. Someone had said, it's about finding the most moments of happiness every day.
Yeah.
And that really stuck with me.
Yeah. My mom said to me one time, she was like, because I texted her, I'm like, really crabby. And she's like, you can be crabby. Just don't stay there. Just
exactly.
Accept it. And there's a really cute movie, Inside Out. I had a client send that to me when I was going through chemo, and she said it reminded her of me. And I think it was, without sadness, you can't have joy. And so I think that was really something that I hung on to.
Yeah. And one of the things that, as I was getting to know you a little bit, you're one of the things that now I don't know if you discovered this during chemo or if this is something that's been with you, but art.
Oh yeah.
Painting specifically is something near and dear to you. So did that come about during your time in chemo, or was this something that just really blossomed during chemo, but you had been an artist all your life?
No, I mean, I grew up wanting to, I grew up surrounded by beads that I would string onto dental floss and make necklaces as a kid. I loved art, but I also grew up under the impression that, you would never make any money making art. So I never really considered myself an artist. I never took classes. As an adult, I was focused on business. I was very motivated to make money. Like I said, I'm a poor kid, grew up in Pennsylvania. So I wanted to go to work, and I wanted to learn business and whatever was going to help me get to that end goal. And so I didn't grow up as an artist. I didn't perceive myself as an artist. And when I was going through chemo, I was vegging out. I was on the couch. I was sick. I wasn't feeling well. I was consumed with reality TV. I watched a lot of reality TV. I watched every episode of Breaking Bad and all of the series that I could find. And I was really burning out. And my mother and my sister sent me a watercolor kit. It was just a cheapy little kit from the dollar store. It had a small pad of paper in it and a set of watercolors. And I picked it up one day. And I was home alone, and I just started painting, and I just felt really, really good, like way better than I did watching TV. And so it just started to snowball from there and blossom to where there were days where I would study an image on Google and then try to recreate it, like something that was inspiring to me. And then I'd try to recreate the lines. And then there were other days where I would just like dump paint on paper and smear it around and then crumple it up and then uncrumple it and dump glitter on it or whatever. So I had a couple of different ways that I would use art, and it was so healing for me. Like it helped my brain, it helped my heart. And then I started to get confidence, because I'd come home, like my husband would come home from work and he would see something on the coffee table, because I would just pound out different paintings, and he'd be like, oh my gosh, like that's really good. And so I was, really? My little messy bird is actually pretty good. It looks like a bird. So it gave me a little confidence, and it just kind of, blossomed from there.
It's the creativity behind that, and what it can inspire, I think, both emotionally as well as in healing. It's just amazing. What's interesting about your story, though, is that was only the beginning.
Yeah.
So this art thing, I'm assuming, you start to go, well, if this can help me, maybe it can help somebody else. I don't want to tell your story for you, but is that kind of a good way to describe what you did next?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it really started, the first thing was I want to give back. So I knew this, the moment I was going through this, I was like, okay, I have this experience that not everybody has. It's traumatic. And I want to do something productive with it. I want to make something of it. I don't want to just let it become the past and be something that randomly comes out from time to time. I want to use it and help people. I want to help people. And I went through so many ideas. I have a notebook of ideas. Like if you've ever, being in the healthcare system, it's not easy to navigate. And so some ideas were to have cancer companions, because you need somebody in those appointments to translate the information back to your family, because you don't hear everything. You just kind of hear 10% of what you're supposed to hear. And so I had all these ideas. I was going to drive around a juice truck and juice kale and carrots and apples, because that was a recipe that made me feel really good. So I knew I wanted to do something, and the intersection started to narrow for me on what that was with my watercoloring experience. And I ended up taking this class, and the class was a real catalyst. It helped me kind of put some teeth and structure behind all of these different ideas that I had and create a focus that became our mission.
What you're talking about now is Creations for Cures.
Yeah.
So this is, because I think it's always fascinating when we talk to somebody who has come from a personal journey, and then who takes that personal journey and just moves forward and empowers themselves to do something bigger and beyond themselves. What was that like to actually start to build this dream of yours and to see it start to grow and happen?
Oh my gosh, it was so unbelievably fulfilling. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of tough, because it was exciting. And there were different phases of it, and it was a wild roller coaster. I mean, sometimes it was comical. Like I remember, so I went to this class. I had this idea. My idea was, hey, I want to help children do art that are in the hospital battling cancer. And I would share just that simple statement with people, and they latched on, and it started to grow. And I thought, okay, I got inspired by people's reactions. And then I thought, well, you know what? I am not just going to run out and start a nonprofit. I don't know enough about that. So let me just go try to be a volunteer. So I got really excited. I filled out my application. I was going to go volunteer at a children's hospital here in Portland, and my application was rejected, and I was crushed. And it was rejected because I had to work Monday through Friday during the day, and that's when they needed volunteers. So it was a scheduled thing, and I got super fired up, because here I had these wonderful people that I worked with, that I was friends with, that thought my idea was great. And then I realized, I was like, wow, there's a lot of people. There's got to be a lot more people like me that work during the day that want to give back and make a difference, that just can't because of their schedule. So I need to create space for them. I need to create opportunities. So I got to laugh. It was comical, because it was like exciting, frustrating, and comical, because they wouldn't let me be a volunteer. I just created a 501c3 and then wiggled my way in the back door that way. So it's been a roller coaster of emotions with what it's been like. Overall, it's been absolutely fulfilling. It makes my heart beat, and it's become my purpose. And that kind of clarity that I'm building something that will outlive me is motivating.
Yeah, I can hear it in your voice and the joy that it brings you. Creations for Cures. Can you tell us a little bit about like what that looks like, what exactly you do and how you do it?
Yeah. So our mission is to bring the healing power of art to children who are battling cancer and other serious illnesses. So any child who is getting treatment, whether they're inpatient, they're living in the hospital, or they're outpatient, they're coming in for treatments. And our team, we're standing at that intersection of science, art, and compassion so that there's less suffering. We bring moments of joy, imagination, escape, a break to not only children, but their families. We make coming into the hospital suck less, for lack of better words. And so that's our mission. We have our art program. We have simplified it over the years, as we want to make sure we validate that our mission, we are fulfilling our mission, and then we can validate that. And we've learned how to do that over the last 6 years. And so our art program consists of, we have volunteers that build these big, beautiful art kits. We have these new boxes that were designed for us by some students at Cal Poly. And they chock them full of supplies, and they include a structured project, as well as the freedom to do whatever they want with the supplies. And then we have volunteer teams that go into the hospitals and the Ronald McDonald houses that we serve, and they do art with kids. So every hospital is different. We cater our program to the needs of that hospital and often the child life department. And so sometimes it is, an event type space, like in Nicholas Children's Hospital in Miami. It's more of an event type space where we will do art with over 40 kids in an hour. And sometimes it's more of a one-on-one setting where our volunteer goes into a patient's room, and then they get to spend an hour with them there doing art. So we customize our program based on the needs of the hospital, and also with their reopening strategy and phases with COVID. That threw us for a loop a few years ago. But we're back, and we were always here, but we're back to be in person, which feels really good.
That's amazing. You have taken something that was a tragedy for you, for your family. You found hope in it, and then you took that hope and you have now distributed it to everyone.
Thank you.
And you said Miami. So where all can people find Creations for Cures in hospitals?
Well, that's a great question. So we currently have served 13 hospitals and facilities all over the country. Those states include Oregon, Illinois, Texas, North Carolina, Florida, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and I think we have one in Delaware. But what we had to do was when COVID happened. So when COVID happened, we continued sending art kit boxes. We continued to give children art supplies because they needed our program now more than ever. So we never stopped. And that's how we were able to expand so quickly into hospitals, because we were able to build the art kits here and then just ship them out. So we were able to build some great relationships with facilities that way. Now what we're doing is we're working with hospitals to reopen our in-person volunteer program. So right now, Oregon and Florida are completely stood up. So we have 4 hospitals in Florida, and we have the Ronald McDonald House out here that we are completely in person. So we're delivering art kits. They have the entire art program for those 6 facilities. And now we're working with reopening up in San Antonio, as well as our local children's hospital here. So our strategy is to provide our art program to hospitals and facilities all over the country. We want to free up their budget to focus on medicine and research as part of how we support the science side, and we could take care of the art side. And so now we're working on the Florida team. I am so proud of them. We have all of our volunteers. We have over 30 volunteers all over the country, and they are extraordinary. And our Florida team is getting ready to run with their second art hour of the year, their second art kit build, and they're doing it without me, working remote from Oregon. And I'm just so humbled and so proud of them. They're just running with it. And our Portland team is kicking butt. I mean, yeah, I won the lottery with our volunteers. I really did.
And it does. It takes a whole village to make this happen.
It does.
So just let's look 5 years down the road. Dream big with me for a minute. Just kind of tell me what your dream for Creations for Cures would be in 5 years.
So my dream, my vision is that we are an employer. And so we are 100% volunteer, which I'm extremely proud of. We've done a lot with a little time that everybody's thrown into the hat. But my vision is to be a concrete fixture in the hospitals that we serve, building relationships, that we are a CFC family, and that we are an employer, and that we are developing and we are giving women and people of color opportunities to lead and to make a difference in their communities and to be able to take care of their families by making a reasonable income. One of the things that has really inspired me and gets me fired up is when I hear of really talented people that have to leave the nonprofit sector because they can't afford to live a reasonable quality of life. And I want to provide that for people. I want to be able to give these communities and these volunteers job opportunities. So I see us being a permanent fixture in hospitals. I see us being a permanent fixture in corporations and organizations that are aligned with our mission, and having a mutually beneficial relationship to where Creations for Cures supports the organizations that support us by bringing them the healing power of art to their employees and their clients. So
Yeah. That's amazing. I love it. What a great vision. Please tell us, how can we support you? How can we find you? What kind of things can we do to keep up with what Creations for Cures is going to be doing?
Oh, thank you. So we have our website, creationsforcures.org. Also follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn. We are constantly posting the great work that we're doing, and I'm really proud of the community that we've built. We're hearing from CFC families that we have impacted. They're sharing and they're posting. It's the best way that you can see the work that we do and the impact that we're making. And then you can also, our website, you can make a donation. We have goals this year, and we are definitely looking for more CFC family members in the Florida area to take care of those 4 hospitals that we're currently serving.
Renee, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for sharing your story and your gift with everyone. I appreciate it, and I hope to hear more back from you, okay?
Thank you so much, Shawn. It was an absolute honor.
The Switchpoint Project is part of the Switchpoint Media Network. Switchpoint Media creates raw and revealing conversations that explore the intersection of self and social awareness, growth, and authentic human connection. For more great podcasts and videocasts, be sure to join us at switchpoint.media.